All right, everyone. Netanyahu has now made it literally clear. Before it was more speculative, and you'll remember that because of his prior comments a week ago, I called it correctly, as usual, with regards to this kind of policy. When Israel was saying we're going to create a secure zone within Gaza, and we're going to stay there indefinitely to create it, by the way, that's basically annexation. Now Netanyahu has confirmed that that is indeed what is going to happen. The Hamas government is not going to be permitted effectively to govern. Israel intends to annex the Gaza Strip. Not occupy, politically annex, as in there will be no more self-determination for Palestinians within Gaza. We've had enough. We're effectively reabsorbing it and creating a literal prison colony. If before the situation was problematic there, you've got security checkpoints and so forth, the IDF drawn up along the border. You don't have full free movement, in or out, by the way. And so really this became a problem for Israel in the diplomatic sector because the UN was constantly condemning them. Well, that's going to get worse now. Although it is better than the alternative, if you just wage sort of an eternal warfare situation on Hamas where people die every other day and rockets are being fired. I think that Netanyahu looked at that possibility and said, which do I prefer? Should I let that continue, the status quo? So we go in like we are now, we bomb a bunch of shit. We're going to get, hit by the international community at this point anyway because of the lopsided death toll. Because we have a standing military with modern technology and they mainly fight with homemade rockets and AK-47s. So we can do that. We get shit on by the international community, mostly, other than the United States. It's literally the only ally of Israel right now that's still defending them for the most part. Macron has weighed in. The Brits have weighed in. It's politically lopsided as much as it is militarily lopsided. And by the way, those things coordinate together. They definitely are a cohesive unit. Or we can just fucking take it over. We still get shit on by the international community, but that's going to happen anyway. And we'll be able to operate freely with impunity within this zone and hopefully suppress Hamas a lot more. I don't think Netanyahu believes that Israel can actually destroy Hamas. Of course, you got plenty of people that appear to support Hamas in other parts of the world. It appears that there's a significant support for Hamas on U.S. college campuses. I don't think that it has to do with some liberation struggle or anything like that. I think that it has to do with Hamas's left-wing economic attitude. I really believe it's just economics. The Marxists are going to side with Hamas because they're communists, basically. Well, politics makes, not so strange bedfellows. Leftists tend to, like to butcher children and stuff. But when Israel's response is killing how many, 12 times as many people, I think, already now, or some insane lopsided amount, some huge differential, it becomes a political problem. So annexing the Gaza Strip, it might suppress Hamas enough that less people do die. It was being controlled by Israel before anyway. The West Bank's going to become a problem in the future. They're going to end up with a civilian uprising there probably at this point. Before it was more speculative. But the thing is, all you had to do was ask yourself, how can Israel actually attain or even close to attain its war goals without this happening? If they enter Gaza and inflame the situation, if they leave, they just get hit on the way out. And then it goes back to the old norm. Clearly, for political reasons only, Netanyahu's not going to do that. He's not batshit enough. He'd be throwing away what's left of his career anyway if he were to do so. The president of Israel effectively came out and said, yeah, kill him. That was basically his response. So Netanyahu is doing, ironically, what a significant proportion of the Israeli population wants him to do. There are still Israelis that didn't want to give up Gaza before, thought it was a bad idea. Definitely you do have more of a network of Hamas with Gaza under their control because they're literally the government of Palestine. I'm wondering if Israel isn't going to fully occupy the last remnants of the West Bank that are still Palestinian or something like that. So the war has definitely intensified. It shows that they're not going to leave, effectively. The area has been annexed. This is a small, highly concentrated area, and it's been annexed. Outright. In everything other than an official declaration of annexation, If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and it's eating bread out of your hand and bit your finger, the fact that you refuse to call it a duck doesn't mean it isn't one. Now, again, this doesn't move the metric as far as my opinion. I'm not Team Israel and I'm not Team Palestine. I'm completely neutral on it and say, what the fuck, basically. I'm America first, and I believe in minding our own border. I'm less concerned about this border over in Israel and Palestine, which is now no longer going to be a border. It'll be a security wall, but it won't be a border, because Israel will effectively control that, the strip. They'll probably build infrastructure there. At least they'll be able to guard it from Hamas looting it and shit like that, so I don't know. Every cloud has a silver lining. There are some advantages to an annexation-style situation. That's the long and short of it that some people don't want to acknowledge. You're not going to ever have a two-state solution. I think there's been too much of a tribal feud in that region for, well, technically 4,000 or 5,000 years, but in the most recent, since the goddamn 50s and 60s, it's been nonstop war and nonstop struggle. What do you hope to accomplish? What is even the point of diplomacy at some point? Yeah, you need a one-state solution. The problem is that both sides are incapable of doing it. Israel would be too afraid of international pressure to officially annex the rest of Palestine. They're willing to grab up Gaza, but they won't call it annexation. It just will be annexation undeclared. And Hamas doesn't have the numbers or the sophistication to destroy Israel. Plus, if the whole region were to implode, the U.S. would get involved. Yeah, the U.S. would absolutely send military assets to go pound any other country in the region that invades Israel. This is, by the way, why they hold back. I think Biden is a warmonger enough and politically desperate enough that he's hoping that happens. Honestly, I think that the current U.S. so-called leadership would be happy. Biden would be secretly celebrating behind the scenes if a bunch of Jews were to get immolated right now by the Syrians, or Egypt were to invade, or something like, oh my God, it'd be the best day of his presidency. Well, I'm a war president now. I get to show off some toys, man. I'm going to take him out behind the barn and do push-ups. I'm going to take you behind the woodshed, boy. Yeah, do I got to beat your ass, Red? That would be Biden's reaction. He would do his big, impressive man thing, which doesn't work on anyone with 2 fucking brain cells, and talk about American might, how great we are, and we're going to save the Jews. And that's what he would do. He would admit it. You know that behind the scenes he would love it. He'd put on the somber face in public, but he'd be chuckling inside. I hope, by the way, that the Israelis know this. I'm sure that they do. I'm sure that they're aware of Joe Biden's proclivities. He's a goddamn vegetable. Probably more warmongering than Netanyahu. It's just that he keeps missing his opportunity to have a war you can actually jump into without starting a nuclear conflict, I suppose. This is, to be clear, judgment aside, it's annexation. That's what's being done. What happens from here is anyone's guess. It becomes a lot harder to predict once Israel refuses to leave. Like, once the fighting does begin to simmer down because Israel controls all of the Gaza Strip and is, gassing out the Hamas tunnels or whatever the hell it intends to do, when they say, well, you've beaten Hamas, bye. Oh, no, we're not leaving. I wonder what's going to happen then from both the international community, the West Bank Palestinians, and whatever remnant of Hamas happens to still exist in exile. And possibly the Egyptians as well. That's about all. Peace out.